Hello again, and thanks for joining me. Good to see you. I heard today that a cargo ship has run aground and is currently blocking the Volga-Caspian Canal. I don't suppose that's going to make the headlines that the Ever Given did in the Suez Canal, but it just goes to show it's not an isolated incident. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. If you were watching last week, I did promise to talk to some extent about regulatory activity in North America. That was on the back of the COSTA annual forum, which was held last month, virtually, of course, as everything is these days. If you follow HCB, you may have noticed Gene Sanders was back writing for us in the May issue. In his column, he spoke about actually not being not having much things to say, really, because of the lockdown. He hasn't been out there meeting people, getting feedback, getting ideas, getting discussion points. And I feel his pain. And certainly it's good to attend something like the COSTA event, which I always enjoyed immensely when I went in person, wherever it was in the States. But to get some sort of input, something to talk about. And there was plenty to discuss there. And Gene Sanders was there as well online, like everybody. And it was good for me to see a lot of old friends virtually anyway, even if it was only their name on the chat banner on the side of the Zoom meeting. So hello, Pierre, hello, Dwayne, hello, Ryan, various Ryans, you know who you are. Hopefully we'll get together in person next year. That'd be nice. But anyway, the aim, one of the main aims of the COSTA forum is to present industry with details of recent and upcoming regulatory changes. And they always do a good job, and it was no different this year. There's plenty of other things going on at COSTA, including an awful lot of training, which is still going on, actually, through to the end of the month. But COSTA had got, for instance, Dwayne Fund to come and talk about what's going on in Geneva. I know I promised to talk about North American regulations, but he is North American, and it was all part of the same thing. Again, those of you who follow the dangerous goods regulations will know that we are in a new biennium, the first meeting of which will take place next month in Geneva, but of course largely virtually. I think there will be a few people there, but it will be mostly done by video link. And Dwayne had some stuff to say about how the subcommittee will be addressing its work over this biennium. It's not that it arrives with a completely blank slate, of course, because there was quite a lot held over from the last meeting at the end of November last year. But the UN subcommittee is a UN body, and it has to take cognizance of other things that the UN is doing. And so, as Dwayne explained, Dwayne being chair of the UN subcommittee, that it will have to look at how to address safety in the most climate-friendly way. In other words, to fit in with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, I suppose. It will be interesting to see what difference that makes, actually. Clearly, the UN subcommittee will not be able to make regulatory changes that are going to have a deleterious effect on climate or to interfere, let's say, with the energy transition. Indeed, a lot of what they're going to be faced with will be how to regulate the transport of materials in new ways. We've written in HCB a lot about the new use of new fuels, hydrogen, ammonia, methanol, whatever. Methanol probably relevant to the shipping industry, but not to land transport, but certainly ammonia and hydrogen could be. How are those going to be moved and stored in the volumes that will be required? Whether they can be manufactured in the volumes that will be required doesn't matter, I think. What else was there? All of this you'll be able to see actually in more detail in the June issue of HCB, which I haven't written yet. Another thing Dwayne mentioned was that the subcommittee will be looking at, to see if there are ways that it can add value in the supply chain. One idea is for unified interpretations of the regulations, especially in cases where queries are being brought to the attention of the subcommittee, as they often are. And Dwayne was looking at the sort of system that the US has in place under PHMSA for letters of interpretation. It would certainly help, I think, the implementation of the model regulations or the equivalent in perhaps in less developed countries, in countries that lack the finances perhaps to have dedicated oversight or detailed oversight of what's going on in the transport of dangerous goods. And certainly the UN subcommittee is also going to be looking at capacity building in terms of training for those sorts of countries. More specifically on North American regulations, Shane Kelly gave a very detailed presentation on what's going on at PHMSA at the moment. I'm just leafing through my notes. Hold on a minute. Because PHMSA and the Department of Transportation in general is having to deal with a new president, a new administration, new political appointees at the head. And clearly there are going to be some changes compared to the last administration. A lot of the restrictions that PHMSA was working under will be eased, which hopefully will make regulatory activity slightly more prompt than it has been of late. And indeed, Shane said that the current priority is to get HM215P out. 215P, some of you will know, is the regular biennial update of the hazardous materials regulations to align with international provisions. HM215O came out about 17 months after everybody else had updated. 215P hopefully should see some regulatory activity soon. The next one I think that's going to be of interest will be HM265, which will look at how PHMSA works. This is not going to bring any new regulation with it, but it will look at the balance between PHMSA and the various modal authorities, each of which, of course, does have an interest in the transport of hazardous materials within the US. Certainly FMCSA for the motor carriers, FRA for the railroads, perhaps FAA as well for aviation, and Coast Guard. So there was quite a lot going on, and I think we can expect an acceleration in regulatory activity, certainly over the next year or so, with plenty in development. We also heard from Geneviève Saint-Souci from Transport Canada, who spoke about the regulatory agenda there, which has not had the same problems as the US over the last 4 or 5 years, but has also been slow, I think, to keep up with international provisions. That is coming. possibly, I think, Canada Gazette Part 1 in the autumn. That's the sort of proposal level. Transport Canada is looking at quite a big rewrite of Part 6, which includes the training provisions, and that will include some things about competency-based training and assessment. They're also working on this registration plan for dangerous goods operators, and IT and stuff like that, and electronic shipping documents and so on. And the other thing that's going on there is a regulatory review of the ammonium nitrate provisions, which came in direct response to the Bay Ridge explosion. But if you're active in Canada in that section, expect a letter from Transport Canada soon, because they'll be wanting to hear what you've got to say about it. That's it from me on that topic. Like I say, you'll be able to read more about that in the June issue of HCB. Next week, I'll be talking, I think, probably about FRP tanks. I was on a very interesting webinar this morning, hosted by ITCO, which raises some interesting safety questions. Anyway, that's it from me. Hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.